Okay. Everything seems to work. Six people, good sign. Hello, it works. Maybe. Join the chat. So I put in a notice if you're only here on YouTube but not on Canvas. Somehow YouTube didn't want to get the chat going, so we're going to use the chat on Canvas. There was an option to turn it on, but it was off by default. When I clicked on it, it wouldn't let me. So the other advantage of using the Canvas chat is that I can see who's online, and that's good. Okay. Just setting up a couple of things. Michelle, hi Michelle. My cat. Oh, you mean this guy? I don't have a cat, so if you're hearing some meowing, it's probably my kids or something. Cat. Oh, I see what you mean. You mean this guy up here, right? That guy? Yeah. Oh, there he is. This guy. Not my cat. I'm lucky enough to have a tripod, so it makes handling this camera a little bit easier. Hi, Daniela. Oh, my Canvas profile picture. Gotcha, Greg. No, it's a funny picture I found on the internet because, you know, that's what the internet's for, pictures of cats, right? That's how it works. I mean, I'm an expert, right? So you gotta take my word for it. Hold on, I'm just gonna adjust this a little bit. It looks a little crooked. Whoops. Whoop. A bit of a setup. Here we go. Better. Perfect. So this one stays tight. Okay, 5 people. Thanks for joining us. Oh, 5 people, including me. Ouch. So we're gonna wait a couple more minutes to see who joins us. For the 4 of you, did you manage to get in touch with your classmates, your teammates for the voting project, or are they all gone? So if I look over there, that's because my screen over there is the one with the camera. Good, so Sid should join us, I imagine. Here. Hello, Safura. And Mary. Hi, Mary. Let me just post the link to the YouTube live stream in case. There we go. It's like a 2-for-1. You get this image and then the chat. Okay. We got 6 people. That's good. So far, so good. I'm going to open my email also just in case. Got a few things to do today. Let's hope we get to them. All right. Ha! No CSS working, huh, Mary? Hi. Um, in order for me to be able to help you during this new class that we have now, this new setup, you'll have to upload your files on your server and give me a link. Just because, yeah, it's going to be way more helpful and easier for me if I can see your actual code, just like we used to do in class. Really, I used to come over. Hey, remember when you can, be a foot away from a stranger? Ah, things we take for granted. Am I right? So, yeah, just look over your shoulder and look at your code. So now we'll just do this over the virtual shoulder of the internet. To be honest, standing a foot away from the internet's probably way riskier than standing a foot away from someone, but that's how it goes. The internet's a dark place. Those were the days indeed, Benji, when we saw each other, you and I, twice a week. Yes. So, Mary, if you could just upload your code and then send me a link, then I'll be able to check it out. And at the same time, I'll be able to show everyone else. Maybe I can show everyone else. I don't know. So just so you know, YouTube's not the ideal platform for this, and I might switch over to something else next week. Something that might be more of a gaming streaming platform, because they're set up way better to share your screen. Because you're gaming, you want people to see what you're doing. So I'm looking into, I know Discord fairly well. I haven't touched Twitch yet. So one of those two, I think, will be the one that I use for next week's live stream, just because, yeah, it's just way easier to use on my end, and I can share the screen, so I can show you Canvas on my, or not Canvas, but brackets on my own computer, so you can see what I'm doing. Now I'll have to use this. Zoom is, one of the go-tos for this quarantine, but it's a terrible program. I recommend that you don't use Zoom at all, mainly because their security is really, really bad. So there's this thing on the internet called end-to-end encryption. What that means is that you have this key that you share with whatever other person you're talking to on the service, and no one else has this key, and that key is used to encrypt, to code your signal through the internet. Hi, Kayla. Nice to see you, Kayla. And so end-to-end encryption guarantees that no one else can snoop into your signal that goes from your computer to the other person's computer. And Zoom said that they had that, but they don't. So there's two problems that come up with from that. One is that anyone and everyone can just kind of do what's called a man in the middle, where they just kind of insert themselves along the path of your signal from your computer to the next person's, and then they can see and hear everything on it. And two, they can also hack into your Zoom, and just all of a sudden you have some random stranger in your Zoom just being a part of it. It seems like it's not a big deal, but the third part is that computers can also do that. And computers are now really good at facial recognition and dictation. So a computer could automatically do a transcript of your conversation with someone else without even having a human needed to watch it. So in the aggregate, with the quantity of data that you have online, that stuff is really bad. The other part is that they have some servers in China, and I don't have anything against the Chinese people personally, but the Chinese government's a whole different ballgame. And if a server is in China, that means the Chinese government has access to it, because it's basically like a totalitarian regime. So they can just seize everything that's on the server, including all the recorded conversations, your passwords, your keys that you have on Zoom. So avoid Zoom if you can. I'm going to figure out the other thing is I want to be able to write like little titles down here, so I can go like, avoid Zoom. There's Microsoft Teams that we all have access to as well through Canvas, or through Columbia, I guess. So Microsoft Teams is another possibility for the multi-screen situation like Zoom offers. And I know Skype has offered something similar as well. We got 10 people in. Good. Okay, so for the 10 people that are here already, if your teammate for the voting project isn't here, can you let me know if you got in touch with them or what's happening with that stuff? Hey, Ryan. I hope you guys are all nice and comfortable in your house as much as you can be for this live stream session. It's a beautiful sunny day today, but it's a little chilly, so I think we're good inside. Let's see what time it is. Okay, 1:15. Okay, so yeah, and Sid checked in when I sent my email yesterday or 2 days ago. The quick check-in. Let me just double check that I actually published the link on YouTube or on Canvas, but I imagine I did because you guys are here. Week 10, here it is. I'm going to post that link somewhere else just to be safe. There's a bit of logistics that we have to figure out this week. I hope your other classes went well. Some of them will be tricky to do like this. Oh, okay, so I'm going to publish this. I'm going to make a new page. Where's the page? Here we go. Oh. New page. There we go. I'm going to call it link to today's stream. Perfect. Stupid tools in Canvas. There's this new feature in Canvas that just opens in the middle of you writing something, and it just moves the cursor somewhere else. So you're typing, and then it just doesn't work anymore. And the link on YouTube. I wonder if they turned off the chat on YouTube because they can't check that everything's all cool now that everyone's on YouTube. Okay, here we go. So I put a link at the top of Canvas in a new section I called Quarantine Info. It also includes a link to an article that describes how to improve your Wi-Fi at home, since that's such a priority today. All right, let me just readjust this a little bit. Tweaks. The other way. Maybe like this. This is better. Whoop, there goes my mouse. Okay. Yes, I'm going to turn this off. How's the video, etc. quality, by the way? Everything good? Everyone can hear me okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 people. Cool. Well, okay. I think we should. Sorry, before we get started, if your teammate is missing currently in the chat or on the live stream, whatever, can you just send me a quick chat message to say what's going on, if you got in touch with them or not, and if they're planning to join us? And also, while you do that, I can also tell you if you haven't got in touch with them, I can tell you if they got in touch with me. Hey, Sidi, good to see you. How Our language is not equipped for this situation. Okay, so website design. As you can tell, I'm wearing my finest hoodie for the class today because it's comfortable. It might be covered in hair because my dog is shedding like crazy. Hi, Emma. Nice. It's the hoodie class today. Hello, Jasmine. So now that I've posted the link at the top of the page, I think it'll be a little easier for you guys to find. And no messages. Okay. The other thing that could be useful for you to know is my CodePen. Let me just try to see if I can link to that CodePen, because that's another quick tool we can use to share. Okay, found it. Here we go. Just so it doesn't get lost in the chat, I'm going to put the link to the to my CodePen in that page that I just made. The link. Okay, just give me 2 seconds. I'm just doing some setup over here. Okay. Corona. Sorry, it's a tick. Every time I cough in the house, I say Corona. I know we shouldn't make fun or whatever, but I'm not making fun of people that are sick. I'm making fun of the situation. That's the catch. Okay, so Mary says, deadlines.html. Oof, many pages. I have some sort of CSS happening because there's some styling on it. Just in case, Mary, you should hold the Shift key and press refresh on your browser to make sure that you get the very latest version. However, this is going to break your heart, Mary. I'm so sorry. But if you remember, you're supposed to do just one page for the voting project. I see that you have a lot of different pages for all your stuff. What I would recommend is that you put it all on the same page, on the same HTML, so that you have one HTML document for all of the information. This doesn't mean that you have to start over everything that you've done, though, because you can still use these links that you have on the left to just go up and down the page if you want. That'll be, the best way to transform your current work into what it's supposed to be. All right, so I see your style sheet is there. And then, you have fonts, but they are not seeming to work. For everyone else, feel free to follow the link that Mary's given us, because yeah, I didn't show you how to do the navigation bar yet, Michelle, because the moment you include it, it's going to break brackets. You won't be able to use live preview in brackets. I mean, you can use live preview in brackets with PHP, but there's a fair amount of setup required, and I don't want to put you through that. You've done enough setup in this class for now. So we got lines loading. Yeah, so your links right now also don't work because you're linking to, you know, the way that these links are working make me think that, Mary, you're using something like Dreamweaver or something like that made the links for you. You know, those file links that you have in there. So make sure that you use brackets, Mary, to make your pages, because yeah, those things are just more complicated. So your navigation doesn't work for that reason. Instead of having these file : / and all that stuff, remember how to link. Oh, okay, so the links are messed up. My suggestion is that you revisit the slides that were talking about the links. It's called CSS links, I believe. And you'll find that under HTML links, week 3. Check that out. That's what's going to explain what kind of link, how you have to write those links so that they work. Basically, in this case, you have all these links that link to different HTML pages. Instead of doing that, you're going to use IDs. If you don't remember exactly how to use IDs, this is going to happen a lot that I say if you don't remember, because my feeling is you haven't done this in a month and you're going to have forgotten a lot of the things. So a lot of today will be recaps and just revisiting some of the concepts that we covered already. So if you have, it's not going to hide the pages, Mary. It's just going to be a whole long page of stuff, and then the buttons will just navigate down to the page. A little bit like I was using Wikipedia as an example in class, where if you go to Wikipedia, you know, at the very beginning of longer pages, you usually have some sort of table of content. You can click on it and it just takes you down the page to where you need to be. So your page will function along the same lines. You still can keep that menu, but it's going to have to be linking within the same page. And you do that by using IDs. So I explain IDs in, I think it's in selectors. No. Oh, maybe it's in links as well. Anyway, and essentially, if you use an ID, you link to, here, I'll show you on CodePen, because this is one of those moments where talk is limited. So I'm going to make a page with a bunch of stuff on CodePen. A long paragraph. Okay, so I have some filler text over here. I'm going to put it in CodePen. Okay. Weird. Okay, body. I'm going to call this using IDs to link further down the page. Okay. Okay, so This is nothing fancy, but it'll help you understand how this works. Okay. So if you go to my CodePen, I put the link at the top of Canvas in that thing called link to today's live stream. If you go to my CodePen, you'll see a few pens. And one is called using IDs to link further down the page. Yours will look nicer, no doubt, but you make your link just like you normally do, except instead of having an address to an HTML page in there, you have the hashtag and the name of your ID. And then further down the page on a heading or whatever, you put that ID as a value, so h2 space ID equals under quotation, the name of your ID. And then when you click on the link menu or on the link item, it takes you down to where the ID is. So let me actually make it look a little prettier by putting some paragraph below it. There you go. Put that here. Because now it just shows it at the bottom of the page, but that's because there's no material after the link. There you go. That's better. If you refresh the CodePen. Yes, Sid, excellent question. Hi. That's one of the things we need to figure out today. I see that there's only 10 people here so far. I'm hoping that a little bit more people are going to show up. So I'm going to wait till 2 o'clock and then we can have a discussion together to figure out exactly how we're going to do the rest of the class. We have, in theory, we had about 4 or 5 things left in the semester that were graded. 2 of those being tests. That's a lot for 5 weeks. And I don't want to, hobble the portfolio any more than it already has been. So I think we can readjust that stuff a little bit, but I think that also we should talk about it together. I have a plan to show you, and then we'll decide if that makes sense together. Sid, your teammate is Armin, right? Did you hear from him in this for this class today? Did you manage to get in touch for the voting project? And so Kayla, I always forget. It's been too long. I haven't seen you guys in so long. My mistake. I'm sorry if I mispronounce your name after a month of not seeing you. I'll try to be on top of it. Okay. Good. This works. Okay. Sid. Oh, sorry. There's 2 Sids in the class, Benji. You're partners with Sid, and there's also Sid that's partners with. Yeah, there you go. You might notice that Sid Bertoncello's profile picture doesn't quite line up with your teammate. Okay. Yes, so if you're present in the chat right now, and your teammate is not here, can you let me know if you have managed to get in touch with them and what the situation is if you have, just so I can get an impression of what's going on. I'll type it in case some of you have muted me already. There we go. Whew. Yeah, good. So Jasmine Ryan is here, I think. Yes. And Michelle Safura is here, but Rebecca is not. Okay. You can also check the list of people at the top where it says 11 people online. I'm pretty sure you have access to that as well as even as a student. Let's look at this blue instructor that I have on my name here. Yes, so for sharing screens, it's definitely tricky. There's a few solutions, none of them are perfect. One is that you upload your stuff as you work onto your server, and that way both of you can see it. Pretty tedious, but you can use CyberDuck, keep it open, and then just drag it in there once you're done working on CodePen. Good idea to keep your own copy instead of working from the server, because if both of you are working at the same time, you might erase each other's work by mistake. Another possibility is something like Google Docs, but that's not going to have any of the formatting, any of the color coding, any of that stuff. So not ideal. Let me see if Brackets enables you to do that. Share work. Well, I'm not going to find that now. So how do you use CyberDuck? That's the $100 question. Okay. Is Armin unable to join us in the chat, Sid? First of all, it seems like you guys have been working on this in the meantime, so that's awesome. That's going to help a lot. Aha. How did you hide the bullets, Benji? Yes, so very great. I'm really happy that you guys have been working on your voting project. That's awesome. Voting has become a little bit tricky because everything's changed, but we'll assume that the information you find on their website currently is, what we're going for. I'm not grading you for accuracy of the information, although it'll be useful to, be accurate in the future. Because this is a real project that I want to use for real, but since we're, we don't know how this primary is going to go, and we don't know how the November election is going to go, it's not a big deal if it's not the latest information on your page. And so, Benji, if you send me a link to your page, I can check it out, and the rest of the class can as well. So to answer Michelle's question, I'm going to open myself a little text document because I'm going to forget all the questions that come by. How do you use CyberDuck? Because I can't share my screen, this style type none doesn't work on other browsers. That's weird. %95 of browsers are supposed to support it. What? None. Let's see what MDN says. Mess. This style type, yeah, this style type is supported by everything. It should be anyway. So let me check this. Oh, Verna. I'm watching the live stream, but I'm not able to comment. Let me just write to Verna. Okay, found Verna. So we got two questions, CyberDuck and bullets appearing. Or appearing when they're not supposed to. So I'm in Firefox right now, so I'll check your website. Everyone should also follow that link that Benji just posted. Oh, look at this beautiful mountain. Vote Colorado. No bullets here. Do you know which browser? Oh, Safari. Psh, yeah, Safari is pretty much a piece of crap, to be honest. Let me check in Safari. No bullets in Safari either. So you're right, Benji. It's just not getting the latest version, because I hadn't visited your page in Safari before and I don't see any bullets. By the way, everyone, you should check out Benji and Sid's page. Seems like they're getting close to being done. Looks good. Very nice. So that's sorted out. Let's answer Michelle's. Oh, any other recommendations? Let me just answer Michelle's question first, so that, because I get the feeling that a lot of students have that question as well, which is how to use CyberDuck. If you, first of all, visit assignment, if you go to the assignment page for the voting project, you'll see these instructions. So, Michelle, this is what you should look at to figure out CyberDuck. If you, of course, if you haven't installed it, install it first. And that's also where you see the instructions to add the navigation bar to your page. So if you're at a point where you're kind of done, before you upload to the server, you can add the navigation bar. Basically, you could do that every time you upload to the server so that you can still work locally, but then on the server see it with the navigation bar. So you have 3 steps for the navigation bar and you have 5 steps for the server space. It's a little bit further down the page on the assignment. So let me give you a link in the chat if you're not finding it. Nice comment from Jasmine. Feel free to comment on Benji and Sid's work while you're at it. Critique, social distance critique. No pats on the back for us today. Just virtual like this, like just good work. That's it. That's all we can do. I made an announcement in the class that also covers a few things, mainly related to your mental health while you're cooped up at home. I know that some of you are now in a completely different living situation than you were before all this happened. A lot of you have had to move out of the dorms and move back in with your parents or whatever. It's tough. Maybe it isn't, but it's different. So, try to stay active and don't, take it one day at a time. I know it seems like a crappy advice, but it makes a difference. We tend to just kind of freak out about what's going to happen in the future, etc. But that's not useful now. Oops. Hold on, I'm just doing something real quick. link. See, this is where I would love to have some sort of like title I can put at the bottom that says, you know, I am typing something. Hold on a second. But no go. Copy. Paste. All right. Done. Good. Michelle, do those instructions work for you? Does that make sense? If it does, then let me know. In case you're looking to use CyberDuck for everybody, you just follow the link that I just posted to the assignment for the voting project in Canvas. And just further down the page, you have the instructions to add the navigation and the instructions to use CyberDuck. Because what I did is I made a little chunk of server space off of mine that is available to you guys. That's what the CyberDuck link is, or the login information links you to my server space. You have to be careful not to delete someone else's work, okay? Just please don't touch anyone else's folders. Everyone has equal access to all of it, which means that everyone can erase everyone else's work. So please try to not do that, because that would suck. I'm not talking to you specifically, Michelle, just a general message. That would be bad. You are correct. So, good. That's sorted out. Does anyone have any comments for Sid and Benji? So here is the link to their page in case you missed it before. Please visit. We're going to do the same thing as we do in class. You can look at the source. Does anyone remember how to look at the source? Anyone? Look at the HTML and look at the CSS. Got some JavaScript in there, huh? That's it, Sydney. Just for clarity, when I say Sydney, it's Sydney Patterson, just like in class, and Sid is Sid Bertoncello. Yes, or inspect. Right-click View Page Source or inspect. It's the same in Firefox, essentially, except it's called Inspect Element instead of just inspect. Ooh, I see. Hey everyone, just go and click on that big C at the top, or put your mouse on it. Fun animation. Oh, so in that case, if you deleted all the JavaScript, make sure to look over your CSS, because I see that you have something that you put a comment on. It said use for preloading JavaScript. You commented the whole thing out, but you know, for the final version, might as well just delete it out of there. If you look at the CSS, everyone, you can see that Sid and Benji are using color variables. That's something I showed Benji before we left Columbia. If you don't understand how that works, it's no big deal. I'll show you in more detail probably next week. Well, I'll probably just make a video of me going through the slides or showing you examples so you can watch it at your leisure, so you don't do this on the live stream all the time. Yes, good point, Mary. Animation will not translate to mobile because there's no mouse cursor on mobile. And so it's a mouse over thing the moment the mouse is on top of it. You could switch it over to a click instead of a mouse over, and then it would work on mobile and desktop. So that's a call that you can make, I think, either way. if it doesn't work on mobile, it's not the end of the world because it's not breaking your site. So this is a great example of features on the website that are going to work in certain cases but not in others, but they don't break the site if they don't work. You never want to have something like that that just breaks the site. For example, a menu that you have to click or put your mouse on top of for it to display. That's just not going to work on mobile. Oh, really? That's no good. In that case, I think the mouse over for desktop only is probably the best option. There might be some CSS magic, I can look it up if you like, to do where it detects the, like if you put in your @media or something, you could put an @media for small screens that uses the click instead of the mouse over. Yeah, that's the thing. Otherwise, you use JavaScript, which I think that's too much. It's like using a jackhammer to hang a picture frame. Yeah, is that a good expression? Who knows? I'm by myself on the internet. Oh, sorry. I just realized that if I touch over here on my computer, yeah, that doesn't make any problems because the mic is over here. Yes. So, okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Good. Verna joined us. Yay. We got 11 people out of 18. That's not bad. We lost a student, so out of 17. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12, 16 students because I'm in the list too. Oh, no, I'm not in the list. Okay, 17 students. So we're missing a few. So if your class or if your teammate isn't present in the chat, somehow the chat keeps beeping at me. Yeah, if your teammate's not here in the chat and you haven't gotten in touch with them, please let me know. Send me an email if you have to, to keep this more discreet. Hello, Armin. Welcome. I'm just going to point out to the people who are watching the live stream that we're also on the Canvas chat. So go to Canvas, look at the very top of our page. There's a indication, but you can find the chat in the left column on your computer. There's just a bunch of options. It goes home, student coronavirus support information, which you should all check out, discussions, and chat. So click on that chat and get in there. And for those on the chat, I'm going to type the live stream. Nope, wrong link. I should keep that link handy because I keep having to find it. Ding. Somehow the chat just beeped for Armin's message. That's not good. Oh, there you go. Are you using your phone, Armin? Yeah, on the phone it's a little different. Where's my phone? Let me check. I have the teacher version of the app, but to find the chat, you go into, I think it's in, yeah, you go into the class. Yeah. I don't know what it loads up when you're straight on. Yeah, let me see if I can do student view on this thing. Nope. Armin, do you want to tell people where the link to the chat is in the phone app? Because my app is different. Because I have the teacher version. It gives me access to different things. So, I mean, you might know that I moved from, or might remember that I moved from Montreal to here, and I'm from Quebec City initially. So that means I have a lot of friends that I don't really see very often because I moved here about 12 years ago. And so I posted a link to the live stream on Facebook in case anyone wanted to join in, but I wrote, it's going to be really boring because I can imagine that's, you know, someone that doesn't know anything about the class tuning into this will just be bored out of their mind. Thankfully, you guys are at home, so you can, you know, work while I ramble. I was pointing out earlier, just to repeat, that I might not use YouTube for the live stream next week, so make sure that you check this link to today's live stream page that I'm going to keep up there. I'm going to write, you know, link to today's live stream, April 16 for next week, etc., just so that you just know where to go, because YouTube's not the best for what we're trying to do here. Okay. We're coming up to 2 o'clock where I'm going to talk about what we need to do for the rest of the semester. So I'm just going to prepare some stuff for that right now. Oh, I don't know if you can hear my belly rumble. It's just, I don't know, it's this time slot. It was the same when we meet in person. It's just like, I'm hungry. Okay, so so far we have coming soon. Resume. Quiz. Voting project. Coming soon is 2.5 points. Resume 15. Quiz 10. The quizzes were supposed to be for 10 points, if I remember. Benji, that's a very good question. I'm going to change the drop-down list. Actually, I'm going to do that today during this live stream. I just have to add a few things to my nav.php. Yes, that's on my side. So once I do that, you won't have to do any changes to your page. It's just going to download. That was part of the advantage of doing it the way I did it. The line you put into your HTML actually links to, well, what it does is that PHP includes a little chunk of HTML that I wrote already. And so if I change what that chunk is, it automatically will plop it in as is. So you don't have to update anything in your page. And that piece, that's the navigation, will change automatically. So it's a good advantage for me. That way I can change all of your page's navigation without having to do it individually. So we got the quizzes. So 40, 50, 65. Yeah, it's something like that. we only did one quiz, if I remember correctly. I was about to give you a second one, right? And that never happened. Yeah. Okay, so we have a few things that we've already done, and then there were a few things that had left to do. Noisy. Quiz times 3. So we had done the coming soon page. Portfolio. And then I'll write it at the top, participation. Bad news is my writing on the board is just as bad when it's a tiny board that I'm holding in my hands and when it's a board in class. So, whoops. Great, Firefox wants to update. Coming soon with 2.5 points. Right. There you go. I hope I moved away from the chat. Whoops. I hope YouTube doesn't mirror image this stuff. But that's what we had so far. Built in. So let me see. Coming soon, resume voting project was supposed to be 10. Quiz, we had 3 left. Programming exercise was supposed to be 15 points. Jeez. Does that make sense? We got 40, 55, 65, 75. We got this extra 2.5 here. So I think the quizzes were supposed to be a little bit less. Well, it's close enough because it's all going to change now. So this is what the semester was supposed to be like. We were supposed to be 2 quizzes in at this point, if not 3. And so, you know what? I think it was actually supposed to be just 3 quizzes. That's the thing. So it was quizzes times 2. And there were 5 points left. So get rid of this. That's where the resume is supposed to fit. So quiz times 2, 5 points. Right? Here we go. So of course the blue stuff is the stuff we've done already. And the magenta is what's left to do. I think that the voting project was advanced enough that we can just say we're going to turn it in. You know, I gave you until next week, but I think if you're done, you should turn it in this week, just so that you can move on to the portfolio. The catch is that we still have this programming exercise in the portfolio to do. And normally we start the portfolio at week 7 or 8, which we had started a little bit, and worked the rest of the semester. So now we're at week 10 officially. We only have 5 weeks left. That means that we have to make it a little bit more compressed. I think that it's still feasible, but I'm the one that just has to sit there while you do all the work. So easy for me to say. So I wanted to hear exactly what you wanted to do with this stuff. There's a few possibilities. One of the ones that seems likely for me, or the one that I suggest, is that we change the grading on this stuff. So in other words, because the portfolio doesn't get the same amount of attention that it should have, what we can do is change the balance of all these points. In other words, I can bump up how all this is counting you know, the stuff that we've already done. Well, I'm including the voting project and what's already done, because, sorry, I keep looking at my camera on my laptop and I just realized that it's probably annoying to watch. So I'm going to look at you guys. Hello. It's probably, you know, mostly done, the voting project. And so what I would do is increase the points that this stuff is worth so that we can decrease what the number of points is on these two things at the bottom. The other quizzes, it's likely that it's just going to be one more quiz instead of two more quizzes. So, I mean, that's a tiny amount of points, so it's not a huge deal. Does that seem fair to you? So in other words, increase, write little pluses on these guys, you know, increase the value of these guys, plus, 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 and then decrease boop, 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 these ones. Well, this one will just be times 1. So in other words, we'll get rid of one of the quizzes and then we reduce the value of these ones. You already have points in this, so that might not be super great for you if you had lower grades in those things, but you know, this is a weird semester, so we can figure that out as it goes. Not now, Firefox. Okay. Because I really feel like it'd be too bad to just kind of make a half portfolio. That sucks, you know? And then you won't be able to use it if you want to use it. So it's going to be a fast pace for the portfolio. I'm going to grade accordingly, you know, like I'm not going to grade with the same expectation for the amount of time that you're supposed to put into it, because how could I? However, we have the luxury of having a little bit more free time in this, you know, scenario. So arguably that means that you guys have probably more time to, you know, put in the extra credit hours. So if you remember, 3 credit hours means that you're putting in 9 hours total in the class, including the class time. But now, because of a class time, it's probably not going to be 4 hours. It's probably, I doubt I can live stream for 4 hours like this. The last hour is going to be me losing my mind probably. So stay tuned. I think that, you know, I'm going to reduce the class time. That means that in theory, you're supposed to spend 6 hours outside of class working on this. Now, in normal circumstances, I know you have a job and you have, you know, you go out, you do all these things, and that means you have less time outside of class. But since we're all stuck at home, perhaps you'll have more of a chance to work on this. So hopefully, you know, this will even out as far as like the actual result of having a, you know, great portfolio website. Now I have to do some math to see if I can total this up to 100 points. Let's see. Well, the coming soon page is worth 2.5 points, and you know, I'll make it 2 points. There you go. The quizzes would be a total of, well, that means there's one quiz that disappeared. 2.5. I'm gonna end up with some weird fractions. Oof, it's gonna be a little messy as far as. Oh, you have less free time now, Mary, because of your family harassing you? Because I'm not making fun, I'm just curious. Feel free to not answer it if you don't want to. Although, you know, I just realized that for a lot of you, you might be actually in jobs that are not done. If you work in a grocery store or something like that, I'm sorry, stay healthy, just stay away from people. People just don't give a shit. I noticed every time I go to the grocery store, it's just like, yeah, 6 feet means everyone, not just me. That's true, Verna. Very hard to focus at home. That is 100% true. I'm a night owl, and that's kind of my way of avoiding distractions, because when it's like 3 in the morning, no one's awake and there's nothing to do. So it usually helps me. But I'm 100% right there with you, Verna, for sure. I think that what can help is I would recommend that you stay in touch with your teammate for the voting project, unless you really can't stand each other, at which point, you know, pick someone else. But basically, get in touch with someone in class that you can talk to while you're working on this. Oh yeah. Sorry, Mary. That's tough. Make sure to, don't touch your face, wear a mask, wash your hands. See, like this, no go. Thankfully, I haven't left the house and I took a shower, so I'm not gonna infect myself today and or anyone else. Yeah, I totally understand that you have jobs, exactly like Benji said. Cool that you're doing that. Keep it up. I know a few people that are nurses and doctors, and I really don't envy them right now. It seems just, not to be a cloud of depression on everyone. I don't know how you're feeling through all this, but it seems like overall Illinois and Chicago are doing it right. If you look at actual stats for the deaths and the cases in the state and in the Cook County, you'll see that it seems to be slowing down. That whole flattening the curve thing, we're doing it. So well done, everybody, including and especially people like Mary and Mary's family who are, doing everything they can to help. But don't feel bad if you're not doing anything like that, because what you're doing to help is staying at home and not helping propagate this thing. The better we do that, the sooner we're out of it. That's the bottom line of this stuff. So I could fill the remaining 3 hours with a rant on how the federal government's handling this. Not well, but it seems like exactly. New York's crazy right now, but good to know Illinois is doing well. Let me give you a little link for, if you like information instead of random um, conjecture. The New York Times has a really great page that I keep linking, and I keep forgetting where the link is. So I think it's on. For my friends who are watching on YouTube who are not part of the class, hey, don't I look older than 10 years ago? Yeah, deal with it. Okay, here we go. There's this great page. I'm going to put it in the chat in a second. I have too many tabs open. Check this out. So if you go on this page, first of all, the New York Times in general has so many great examples of amazing web design. And if there's anything design can do, we have this kind of idea that, we're going to design products for people and, this kind of capitalist approach to the job of designing. And I mean, that applies to people who are in advertising, art direction, and et cetera. But designers also have a real responsibility because we are here to help information be shared and be, the sentence is not a good example, but basically our work enables people to understand information better. And this page from the New York Times is a great example of how, first of all, this whole idea of a logarithmic graph, which very few people remembered from high school or middle school, is now a common thing that we know. But second, the fact that they managed to make this really cool interactive graph situations where you can type in Chicago and see, oh, number of cases in Chicago doubling every 7 days. And you can see the curve starting to happen. The deaths are still pretty straight, so that's not great. The number of cases and the number of deaths are not really lining up as far as the timing of it. But it's still good to know that we're doing it right. So, keep at it, stay safe, wash your hands, all that good stuff. It's super important. It's weird because it doesn't feel important. You're just sitting at home and it's like kind of can be stressful a little bit, but believe me, it helps. Just trying to do this here. There we go. Okay. Okay, so let me finish my math over here while you keep working on your voting project. Oh, the other thing is we have access to Microsoft Teams, which is part of the whole Outlook Office 365 thing that we have access to through Columbia. And that's another video conferencing software that's better than Zoom, which is a bit of a security mess. So feel free during class to do some sort of a team thing with your teammate for the voting project, because that'll help. So maybe we can do 10 here, 30 here, 7.5. That's math. So I took 5, so 20, 15, 5, 60, 75, 80, 90, 92 points. Whoops, a little short. Welcome to my live stream. It's called Nicolas Does Math on Camera. 40, 55, 60, 80, 90. Okay. 10 points. Oh, that's because of this guy. Okay. That's nuts. Okay, so let's see if this is 10. 10, 20, 40, 50, 80, 95. Okay, so I think this is better. Let's see. So let's see if that works. We got 40, 80, 90, 100. Okay, I got some sort of a new tentative grading situation here. Weird fractions, but you know. So I boosted the voting project a little bit more than the resume because the resume was still early on in the semester and your abilities might not have been as good as they are now. So participation, I'm going to keep at 10. That's usually my fudge factor. I mean, I'm going to look at the first half of the semester and the second half of the semester independently from one another. In other words, you know, if you were there in the first half of the semester, that'll give you a certain amount of points. And then same here in the second half of the semester. I'll probably skew towards the first half of the semester just to balance it out in the same way everything else is balanced. But, you know, 10 points. Coming soon page, same thing. Coming soon page, same thing. It's 2.5 points. Just reducing that is kind of silly, and everyone did pretty well. So let's just do it. What's changing is the resume is going to be 20, and the quiz is going to be 5, the first quiz. And then we're going to leave the second quiz at 2.5 points. You're supposed to get 2 more quizzes, but you get just 1, so that reduces the amount by 2.5. And the voting project is going to be worth 20 points instead. And then the programming exercise is 10 points, and the portfolio is 30, which is a total of 100. What do you think? Does that work? Yes? 1.5 thumb up. See, it's over here. Yeah? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have more people. Yes. If this doesn't work out, send me an email. But I will assume that you guys are okay on board. I mean, I know some of you are not super happy with the score you got on the resume, and that's going to make it a little bit more sizable in the semester. But just in reality, you know, the amount of work. Just I know it's messy working now. I've had my own share of difficulties just getting things done. So I think this is probably right. Very good. Seems like everyone seems to be on board, or the people who say yes are on board, and people who say no are staying quiet. If you want to disagree and you don't want to say it in public, send me an email. Okay. Perfect. Good. Very good. Let me just check something real quickly before we keep moving. So the next step we're going to do, I'm going to introduce the programming exercise. I'm going to show you how to get started. That was already a self-driven exercise that you do online. So no different now, you're just doing it at home instead of doing it at school. Have you given us grades for our resume? Haha, that's what I wanted to check. Good question. I don't think so. I definitely, oh yeah, I forgot to put them in. Sorry. I'm going to do this in the current, before next class, you'll definitely get a grade on your resume for sure. I'm way behind on that, clearly. So apologies. Going back to what I was saying about getting things done and such. So I'm sorry, dropped the ball. What did I want to check? I want to check people. Attendance. Okay. You guys are the best. If I can say, you know, we were off to such a great start in the semester together. I was really happy with the direction we were going. Everyone was doing so well. You know, we can continue in that direction. I'm just, you know, it's sad that we won't get to see each other again. I think this is still easier to do in person, and I think it's nice to just have the connection together. So, you know, I think it'll be. I'm looking forward to seeing the work that you do on your portfolio. I'm really excited to see what you come up with. But I got to say that so far, everyone was working really well, doing their very best. You know, keep it up. If you need help while you're stuck at home, just feel free to email. What's going to happen realistically is I'm going to be checking my email a lot more regularly. Like, you know, it's going to be on uh, during class time for sure, 1 to 5, and also during my other class on Friday, 12:30 to 3:30, I'll be checking my email a lot. But the rest of the week, I'll be back to my regular once or twice a day kind of schedule. I usually keep an eye on it. We get so much crap from Columbia, so many messages. It's even more now because of all of this. Every single department that's, you know, sending messages feels like they need to send their own take on the coronavirus and how whatever. So it's just drowning in random messages like that. But whenever I see a message from a student, I usually try to keep an eye on it and reply as quickly as I can. So expect replies within a 24-hour period or so. Okay, I'm gonna take attendance. Let's check this out, see if it works. Is there any sort of organization in this? No, of course not. So I see Michelle and Greg and Benji, Verna. Sid is there too. Emma was there. Yes, there she is. No Rebecca for now. Well, you don't need to know that. Kyla. was there. There she is. Jasmine, Corona, Sydney, Mary, Jacob, Armin bailed. Armin, if you're watching the live stream, come back on the chat to make sure I know you're here. Daniela is there. And then Ryan and Safura still there. Yeah, it's interesting, you have these things that you don't really acknowledge in your daily life, and oh, they're on mobile. Gotcha. It's just because Armin just fell off the chat, but if he's on mobile, he has to switch back and forth between. Gotcha, Jasmine. Armin, Jasmine told me about where you are, so it's all good. Yeah, we'll make the best of the situation as far as the attendance and stuff. Okay. Is Rebecca online as well, Michelle? Do you know if she's keeping an eye on the live stream or? Oh, is that who you were talking about, Jasmine? Yeah, probably. Yes. Got it. She's trying to join the chat. Yeah. Here we are. This is also a great opportunity for you guys to think about which of the concepts that we've seen already you need to, take a look at again. I'm going to go through the slides that are on Canvas just so that you can, let me know if one of those things is not clear anymore. All right, so list of selectors. That's just a link. Okay, never mind that one. Here we go. We got the intro to HTML. That's not really super necessary to function. It's just really more extra info. Then we talked about semantics. In one sentence, semantics is the idea that the HTML document should be for the meaning of the document, not for styling. So if you put an element in the HTML that is not for meaning, you got to make sure that you have a good reason. And if you do something like that, then you need to use an element that has no meaning. So either a div for block level elements and or a span for inline elements. If you remember, a block level element was an element that just stands by itself, like it's not a part of another element in the visual display. What that means is, the simplest way to say it is, a block level element, it's going to have an enter after it. So a paragraph has an enter after it. Like if you have a P element, the next P element, P, will be after it. So meaning in the HTML, styling in the CSS. Okay, CSS intro, same idea. In the CSS, you make CSS declarations by using a selector and then opening a curly brace and then having a declaration, which is composed of properties like background dash color and values, which in this case would be a color value. So font family is another property, all of those things that you put in there. And selectors can be element names, so like H1 or UL or whatever, but they can also be different kinds of selectors that can use the context of the HTML, etc. You have a list of selectors at the very top in the category important links and files. Just a quick recap of what we've seen so far. Very quick. I'm going over a lot of things. We looked at design grids and how they can use, or how they can help you set up your page at the very beginning. That's especially useful for us in web design because you can't really do pixel perfect stuff in web design because it changes no matter what you do. everyone has a different screen that they're looking at this, website on. So grids can help you with that stuff. Look at design grids in week 4 to get more information. I also explain how to use color in CSS. There's color names, there's hexadecimal color, the one with the hashtag and a bunch of letters and numbers after. And there's RGB and RGBA and HSL and HSLA. Those last two with the A at the end can enable you to do transparencies in HTML. Again, more details in the slide. Units in CSS, you can use pixels, you can use font points, PT as a point, but there's also relative units, so centimeters, millimeters, pixels, points, all that stuff. Those are absolute units. They represent a value that does not change in size, but relative units change in size. You have percentage units, so 100%, 50%. If you say to a paragraph with 50%, for example, it's going to be 50% of its parent. So if that P is in an H1, that's also 50% of, let's say, the whole width of the screen, then your paragraph ends up being 50% of 50% of the screen, which means 25%. You also have a very useful unit that's called VW and VH. Those relate to the size of the window. And so that's a great thing that you can use to make something fit the whole first page, let's say, of your website, which is, I think, what Sydney and Benji did for their, opening Vote Colorado page that has a mountain, and it fits perfectly on the whole page. They gave that section, probably a section element, a height of 100% V8 or 100 VH, not 100%, so that no matter what the size of the screen, it's going to fit properly. Useful little trick. It's super simple, but it makes really nice, like it cleans up your design very well. Okay, so we are also, man, I just realized I fell out of the chat again. Sorry about that. I'm just going to look if there's questions. No questions. Good. Where was I? Units. Okay, and then fonts. You've learned how to use fonts by using Font Family, but also by going on Google Fonts and Adobe Typekit. Don't forget that through Columbia, you have access to a lot of free fonts on Adobe, which you can access through the little Adobe menu. Like you have the Adobe Creative Cloud little logo in your on your computer. I can show you on this right here. This menu right here. There you go. See, in the Mac, it's at the top here. You have a little menu. See that little arrow is pointing to it right here. If you click on that, you have a menu on there called Fonts, strangely enough. Let's see if I can operate. Wow, backwards. Yes, I am the best. Here we go. So this just shows me the fonts that I've personally activated, but you can also browse all fonts right there. That's fonts. Then we looked at responsive design. That's the whole @media thing. Remember that once we introduce the @media, it's like you have 3 different containers or buckets for, I'm going to take a photo of this so I can erase it. You have 3 different buckets for your CSS. You have stuff that applies no matter what the size of the screen. So whether it's on desktop or mobile, there's some aspects of your CSS that are going to be, unchanging. Like you're not going to change the font you're using necessarily on a mobile versus desktop, right? So that stuff you put at the very top of your style sheet. And then at the bottom of your style sheet, you're going to have 2 declarations called @media. So you're going to have one for small screens and one for large screens. It's a little confusing because it uses the terms min width and max width. The max width one is the one that is for small screen. It's confusing because the word max makes it sound like it's big, but it's for screens that are at most the size in pixel that you write next to max width. And you're going to have another one after that called min width, and that's for large screens. Think of how you can adjust your design so that it still looks like the same design without, looking like a completely different website, but that doesn't break the mobile version of your website. You can't anticipate the size of the mobile screen in your CSS. You can't say a certain width and then it's mobile and then give everything widths and pixels, etc. The moment you're in mobile, the moment you're writing a CSS sheet, yes, the moment you're writing a cascading style sheet for mobile, you have to work with percentages or tiny little pixel values. So what I usually do in general for my things when I go to mobile is just give body a width of 100% if it wasn't done already, and give everything a width of 100%. And instead of a margin, like, giving a 25% margin, I either give a margin of 5% or something, or 5-10 pixels. That way, you're using most of the space on the screen for the content, because you can't really afford to have these super wide margins on text, because your screen just gets eaten up really quickly, even with tiny margins. So tiny little margins just like this, so that your content still has room to breathe and be understood. So generally speaking, on CSS, when you're doing a style sheet with @media, the stuff that you're going to change for mobile relates to the font sizes. If your font is too small for a phone, you might want to adjust it, or too big for a phone, that's another problem, depending on how you're designing. Another thing you might want to change, if you have buttons and they're really close and really small together, make sure that people can still touch each button or link individually, because you don't want to, well, that's happened to everyone, right? You touch a link and then you actually click on the one or tap on the one that's next to it because they're so close together. You don't want that to happen. So you can put more padding inside your buttons or more padding around your links if you want to avoid that problem. And the third thing you want to do is you want to make sure that the screen doesn't have to zoom in. You don't have to zoom in and out to see the content. You don't have to go left and right because this content is too wide. So that relates to the margins and the width I was talking about before. That way you have a website that just operates just like everything you navigate to on the web. You have the huge advantage of being on the internet on your phone all the time. That's for real, like that counts, that's expertise. It's not just leisure. You're using the internet a lot, and so you know what causes problems a lot. So you can take a moment to think about the things that frustrate you, or keep that in mind in your just daily internet usage. Keep in mind, I need to pay attention to the things that bug me or the things that are done really well. And that's the stuff that you need to pay attention to when you're designing your own website. I gave you just the broad lines right now, but there's clearly other stuff as well. So that's responsive design. It's also sucks that we missed a class because I wasn't there. But we'll deal with it. Yes, the other thing I talked about is image formats. There's different types of image formats that you can use for the web, but you can't use everything. So the ones that are allowed are JPEGs, of course, because that's the format that was designed for the internet pretty much. Well, for photographies, but compressed photographies in small size. GIFs, which are not really useful for a whole lot of things, and PNG, which is useful if you want to have an image with transparency. PNG is also good for stuff that is not really done in JPEG and not really done in vector. So try it out in Photoshop if you need to. And finally, SVG is the vector format. So if you have logos and etc. to show, that's the format you want to use. Look at the slides for more details on the pros and cons of each format. There's not one format that's good for everything. They're all kind of good for their own thing. But generally speaking, you're going to end up with a lot of JPEGs and a lot of SVG, or a few SVGs and maybe some PNGs. JPEG is still the format that we use a lot, especially in design or photography. Some of you are in photography, so JPEG, of course. And I also showed you how to use SRC set to send high quality images automatically to the browser. This might not be super relevant for the voting project, but once we start getting into the portfolio, you want your portfolio images to look the best they can. And so the way you do that is that you save a few different versions at few different sizes of JPEG, and you use SRC set to just kind of populate depending on what kind of size of a screen people are using. It's the size of the screen, and it's whether or not it's a Retina display. Well, Retina display is the copyright from Apple, but whether it's a high resolution display, I should say. Excuse me, I have the hiccups now. Excuse me. Today I actually said I posted the variables thing. That's good. We can do that today. I'm going to make a new CodePen where I'm going to put an example of how you write variables in. Can I turn off the JavaScript change view? No. So there's just a few little setup things. Post. Is that better? No. Project. They, since the last time I had to use CodePen this much, they've added a lot of things. So that's very useful because I might be using CodePen a whole lot more next semester. There we go. So I'm going to make a pen that I'm going to call variables. They're actually called something else. They're called custom properties. So I'm going to write that there as well. See, this is the thing, like the reason I don't really like YouTube for this is that now I would be just showing you my screen as I type this, and you'll be able to see exactly, the code that you need to do. So it just makes this whole thing a little bit more tedious for you guys. So I'll try to set that up for next week. The way that it works, let me just make a bogus HTML document again. Bogus HTML. Keep in mind that on CodePen, you don't have to put the head of the document, the HTML, all that stuff that's at the very beginning of your HTML document is not necessary on CodePen. What CodePen does is called code snippets. It's just a little piece of code. So you don't have to worry with all the extra stuff. You can get straight to the point of what you're trying to show. So for me, in this case, it's very, very useful. If you want to share a whole HTML, there's nothing stopping you from putting the HTML element, the head element, and all that stuff in there. It's just that your CSS links and your JavaScript links, if they're relative links, if it's just the name of the CSS in there, it's probably not going to work. You're going to have to paste the CSS in the CSS box for it to work. Just so you know. I got to go back to get some more filler for this page. 3 paragraphs of filler. Over here. Okay. And then what else? section element. Oops. Man, CodePen's really aggro at telling you haven't saved your document. Back off, CodePen. I'm on it. Here we go. Here, I'm going to save it now. So you should see this new CodePen with no CSS yet. I'm writing the CSS currently, and I'm going to save as I talk so that you can see exactly what I'm doing. In fact, I'm going to put links to the 2 pages that are relevant. Variables. Wait, that makes no sense. Wow. So, saving again. Can we do autosave? Behavior. Save automatically. Yes. So CodePen's going to save every 30 seconds. So if you want to keep track, you can go to this CodePen over here. Yes, Benji, thank you. You also have a link to my CodePen at the beginning of the class. I think it's in important files or whatever. Somewhere up there I have a link. But the CodePen I'm working on is the one that Benji and I linked to in the chat right now. So swap over. Sorry for the people who are over on the phone if you have to juggle a few things. Sorry. So you'll see these 2 links, and then you see something called :root, and then it opens the curly brace. That's just basically what you're going to use to declare your variables. You're going to declare them in root like that so that they're accessible to the whole document. Root is just a computer term that means, like the root of a tree. It's the starting point. So it's where everything comes from, and therefore if you write roots for this, your variables will be accessible to the whole CSS document. So this first step is to declare, well, to give it a name. So we're going to give it a name. I'm going to call it, I'm using the names that are on the page that I linked at the top, just so it's clear for you guys. And I'm going to give it some hexadecimal color. We're going to make it some sort of a pink, maybe. Let's see how it turns out. And then, so you can declare multiple variables like this, and they don't have to all be colors or whatever. They can be, oops. Something like this. So if you refresh, okay. Main width, let's make it like this. Perfect, that's better. Man, so there's a new message alert in the chat, and it's not working very well because I just got the beep for Benji's comment from literally 4 minutes ago. Not great. Not impressed, Canvas, not impressed. Okay, so if you look at that CodePen, you see that I've declared a few different variables at the root of the document. So now I can use these these variables throughout the document like this. You notice that all of the variable names start with 2 dashes. That's just the convention of naming your variables. You have to start with 2 dashes like that. And notice that I also have no spaces or anything like that. So I would stick to just lowercase letters and dashes for this. Just avoid numbers. And you want to give them some sort of meaningful name so that when you use it, it makes sense. When you read the CSS, we don't have to go fish out the top to see what the variable does. And so now if I write background color, I can use the variable by typing var, variable, var, and then opening a parenthesis and writing the variable name in the parenthesis, just like I did now. But you can also have some sort of fallback for it if the variable doesn't work. So if you write, say I do this, something like this, you notice that if you refresh the page, you notice that now my declaration for the background color of the section now says var main bg color comma blue. That means that if you're on a browser where the variable doesn't work, comma blue is going to take over. Another way to do this is to declare it twice, but I'm not sure if that really works super well. So declaring it twice looks like this, where you go background color blue, and then you go again background color var blah blah blah. Realistically, let's see how much this is used, or how much this is variable property is now supported by 92% of all users worldwide. That's not bad. I would say we can go for it. Internet Explorer doesn't support it, but let's be honest, nobody uses Internet Explorer anymore. Or I can tell you, 1.39% of the global population uses Internet Explorer, so they can upgrade. Especially if it's something like a background color. If it doesn't work, it's no big deal. You want to start watching out for those percentages when you're doing something that's a little bit more critical to your site. Again, that relates to navigation or important information. You don't want stuff to not appear because people don't have the right browser. And so the beauty of a variable is that I can then use it over and over in my document. And if, let's say I do margin var, if you want to change the value for it, then you change it in one spot at the very top of your document, as opposed to all over the place. So width, I'm just writing a little bit more stuff here just to show you main width. There you go. Perfect. So I can do the same thing over and over again, use the same variable over all the document, and it's going to keep working. Excuse me. Wait. Oh, that's the H1. I should use the paragraph instead. Paragraph. So you see that I'm using the variable main width twice in my document, and it works for both. You can see that the red square, which represents the section, is 50% of the width of the screen, and then the paragraph is 50% of its parent, which is the section. Let's do some padding on this one. Padding. See, and I'm noticing that my names are not very good because padding width now is applied all around the paragraph. Actually, I'm going to put it on the section. Cut. Padding. Save. So I'm going to change the name from padding width to padding value because that's more accurate because it's also applying at the top of the document and the bottom of the document. So it's not really a padding width anymore. Margin width also should be margin value because for the same reason, it's applying all around the element. There we go. That's how you use variables. And I'm going to close some of these documents because I can't see the chat anymore. Here we go. Good. It's likely that I'm going to re-record some quick little thing showing the screen and the explanation again. A little 5-minute video. If that's the case, then you'll be able to find it on Canvas under this week's page. Just like you used to find the slides, etc. In fact, just in the same spot where you can find already the CSS variable information right now. Uh-oh, Michelle crashed. We got more people. Good. 14 people. Who just showed up? Okay. All right. That's custom properties in CSS. I'm going to link to that CodePen in the same location as well. Cancel. URL. I'm going to call it CSS variable CodePen. CodePen 4. There you go. Yes. Okay. Perfect. That's weird. Somehow I made the link exactly the same way I did with the other one, and it looks different in my CodePen. So, whoa, it's pretty windy out there. Did you notice, everyone, yesterday there was a minor tornado somewhere in Illinois? That's why we got all that crazy rain. You saw how it kind of turned green for a little bit. If you're in Chicago, I don't know if it happened in the suburbs too. Then I looked on my weather app on my phone, and it showed me there was a little tornado passing through. I hope no one got hurt. It didn't seem like a major thing because I didn't see it on the news or anything. Unless there was a tornado alert in my weather app, but I think it was for real. Okay, so that's variables. So for the voting page, let's get down to brass tacks. It's 3 o'clock. The voting page, you can look at the assignment page to see exactly what you're needed to do. If there's anything in there that's not clear in any way, students are always scared to send emails and ask questions. There is no dumb question. I know that every teacher says that, and I remember being told that as a student and still feeling bad and not asking the questions I needed to, but I'm here to help. So please send me your questions and I'll answer them as best as I can. Sometimes I'll send you a reply saying I'll address it in a live stream because it's a question that a lot of people came up with, or I'll post a video or something like that, but I'll try to answer it in as clear a way as possible considering the situation we're in now. So if you look at the assignment for the voting project, you can see that it's due next week. So the due date is next week, But like I said, I recommend that you get this done. It looks like people are in pretty good shape. So try to get it done with your teammate and upload it. You can find the instructions for the navigation bar also in that assignment page. Let me put the link in the chat just to make sure everyone's on the same board, same page. And so that assignment's going to stay open. Well, in this case, usually I would leave stuff open for like the week after. But because we're in this weird situation, I'm going to leave it open until the end of the semester. Keep in mind, that doesn't mean that the assignment is open until the end of the semester, that you're not going to get penalized for dropping it late, but I get it. Let's see what the last week of the semester is. April, May. May 14 is the last day. There we go. This beep in the chat is not working well at all. It's 5 minutes late on your messages. Not useful. So I've extended the opening date for the assignment until May 14, but once again, it's still due next week. The next thing we're going to do is the programming exercise. So let me put that online for you guys so that you can see it. Yes. I'm going to edit a little bit, and then I'm going to post it up so you can see it. It's probably the most straightforward thing you're going to have to do in this class until the end of the semester, because it's designed to be done over the internet. So here we are over the internet. I think that should work. All right, so I said that instead of being 15 points, well, you know what? I'm going to adjust all the points after class, because we'll won't spend time on that today. Available until, I'm going to give you until the end of the semester as well for this one, but it'll be actually, you know what, the week before, just because. It's good for you to have an extra week in case. Okay, save and publish. All right, so I've just published this new assignment right here. I would strongly encourage you to try to follow those instructions in there right away so that you can see what you're in for, quote unquote. But also, if you run into issues trying to sign up or trying to get started, well, I'm here now, so I can help you even if it's not perfect. Way easier to help with a chat and conversation than, through email. So JavaScript programming exercise, it's called. And so you're going to go on this site called Free Code Camp. This is so weird. It keeps beeping, but I don't get any messages. If anyone's posted any sort of message after Michelle saying my internet crashed, I'm not getting them. So I don't know if the chat's not working. I'm just getting these beeps from the chat and nothing's there. So back to the assignment. Free Code Camp is a great website if you've been wanting to improve your life, etc. Related to programming, well then Free Code Camp is a great resource. Once you've made an account, that's the first thing you should do. There's a button down the page, orange button that says sign in and get started. It's free. That's the first thing you should do, because if you don't do that, that's the thing in red on the assignment, it won't keep track of your progress. And so I won't be able to see if you're actually doing the work. Like I won't be able to grade it, because I'm basically grading what you've completed. This is, if you've ever done something like this, it's a step-by-step process where you do the first thing, and if you get it right, you can go to the next thing, and if you get that right, you can go to the next thing, etc. So the more of this you complete, the better your grade. And it's important to realize that you have to do all of the exercises under basic JavaScript. So once you've created your account, I'm going to sign into mine just so I can see it. Continue with email. I'm pretty sure that's what I did. It's a little bit weird the way you sign in because it's like always sending you a code to log in at first. But once you've done the first, sign in, it's free. You put in your email, they send you a code, and you put it into the website. You have this thing called update my account settings. The first thing you should change is your username, so it's representative of you. And you go into the privacy settings at the bottom, and you got to make it public so that I can see it. So just make all that stuff public. Well, I mean, your name, your location, your about me, all that stuff, who cares? But your points, your heat map, your profile, certifications, portfolio, timeline, basically keep private the thing that might contain private information like your name, location, and your about me. Who cares? But everything else should be public. And so the thing is, every time you log back in, you have to go into the, let me just double check to make sure I don't say something wrong, but you just have to click on the sign in again. And if you're using the same computer, it should sign you in automatically. If you end up on a new computer, you still have to do the sign in. You still click on the yellow button, sign in and get started. Sign in code. And put it over here. Yes. So the moment you've signed in already, you still have to put in the free code if you're on a new computer. Or not the free code, but the verification code. Whoa, someone's drag racing down the street. Corona drag. So there's one that's called JavaScript Algorithms and Data Structures Certification. And in this one, you have a bunch of different things. We're not doing all of those things. That's way too much for us. We're just doing the very, very first one in that category called Basic JavaScript. It says there's 110 items in there. Seems daunting, seems like a lot, 110, but some of them will take you 2 seconds. So it can go pretty quickly, but you still have to assume that you're going to spend, depending on your comfort level, 2 to 4 hours doing this. Some people are a little slower with reading, etc., so it might take you 6 hours, but I doubt it would take you longer. Okay, so Ryan asks, I'm actually not sure what the heat map does, to be honest. So I don't know if you have to make it public, but you should basically make everything public. If you don't have any private information in there, if you didn't fill up the about me or whatever, then just make everything public. That's the easiest. You don't have to put in a name and a location and an about and a picture and all that stuff. But your username, you should change from that crazy number that they give you to something more, meaningful or something you care about. And yeah, do public for everything, basically, unless you don't want your location and your about me to be public. But if you don't put that stuff in there, there's just nothing to make public, so you're still protected. Don't forget that you have to press there's a save button somewhere. Where's the save button? This is a very long page. I'm just trying to. All right, I don't think there's a save button. The moment you put that public or private, it just saves it. So good to know. But if you change your username in that, then you have to press that save button that's right below it. So make everything public. Change your username to something real. And complete basic JavaScript. Done. So like I said, I encourage you to get started on that like right now while we're all together. That way, if you're running into issues, I can help. Okay. So that's done, or not done, but we've sorted it out. The next thing we have to sort out now is the plan for the portfolio website. So if you remember, I had this plan that I wrote out in class, which involved many, many, many weeks. So let me just try to work it out so that we can do the same thing in 5 weeks. So we're going to have to concentrate a lot of work, but hopefully we can still go through all of that process. So we got template, navigation. Oh, well, actually, I missed some steps. Wireframe, mockup. HTML. HTML template, navigation. I think we'll switch it over to gallery. Oh, It's a lot of stuff, but I think we're in good shape. Touches. Okay. Thankfully, we had started, I remember, doing the wireframes and the mock-ups at the beginning. So let me just put this right here so you can see it. Oh, maybe a little closer so it's nice and big because my writing is terrible. Like this, nice and straight. You know, now I feel like I should buy a little whiteboard holder. Wireframes and mock-ups were the steps that we did in class before. So if you remember, the wireframe was the one where you just draw a few boxes. Here, I'm going to do it like this. You draw a few boxes where you position where your navigation, where your gallery, where all the elements of your websites are going to be. So just sketch it out. Usually you would have desktop versions and mobile versions. It's also useful to kind of figure out exactly how you're going to place all that stuff so that you can write good HTML and efficient CSS. So that's the step one of any web design, is always a wireframe and or a mockup. In our case, we're doing both. Benji, you can totally 100% repurpose your resume to be your about page. However, please leave a resume as a separate file since I'm still grading, I think, just in case. So you should have a folder. I'm going to put this away so I can look at you. Look at you. You can have a folder. You should have a folder called resume in your, what's it called? Public_HTML folder. That one you leave there. You just download a copy and then readjust it so that it fits the design of your website. So yes, your resume could be your about page. But an about page generally is a little friendlier than a resume. You'll have like a photo of yourself. You'll have some sort of paragraph that describes you or your company and what you want to do. And that's where you decide what kind of tone you want to use as well. Not every website is going to be the same. Some people like using a company name for their website, for example, instead of their own name. For example, instead of calling it Nicolas Côté Design, I'm going to call it, I don't know, Pretty Lamp Design or whatever. Who knows? That's a genius name. And so the tone of your about page can, do the same thing. You could have something that's a little bit more distant, more corporate or business. We are a blah, 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 or, Benji has been doing design, you write it in the third person. The downside is that if you're clearly a freelancer that's just working by themselves, it can look a little stilted, It's like, who's this guy talking about himself in the third person? So feel free to choose whatever tone you feel is appropriate for what you want to show or what approach you want to take. But it's usually helpful to have at least some sort of paragraph to describe yourself. And same with the photo. You don't have to have a photo. You can have any photo. Maybe you have a photo of your dog or whatever, or something else that you care about. But think about how this is viewed by the people who are trying to either hire you for a job or for a contract. So you should have something that looks professional, but professional is kind of a very broad idea now. It's not like a suit and tie kind of approach from like the 50s. There's a lot of different ways to do this. And professional also depends who your clients are. Being a professional for tattoo parlors is very different than being a professional for banks, for example. So wireframes and mockups. The wireframe is the sketchy little square one. The mockup is the one that you're supposed to be reproducing your website as best as you can. So you're going to go into Illustrator or Photoshop and make a pixel perfect. You make a box that's the size of the screen that you're shooting for, whether it's mobile or desktop. And then in there, you actually draw, the colors that you need to draw. You put in the font that you want for your menu items, etc. Keeping in mind that not all fonts that you can use in Photoshop are accessible on the internet and vice versa. So if you're using Google Fonts, use something similar in Photoshop. Who cares? It's so that you have a visual reference for your website. The reason this is so useful is that when you're writing your CSS, you don't have to kind of imagine stuff and then write it in CSS. It can feel like a detour sometimes because we're not seeing, like you're writing an instruction and then it's having a visual effect. Whereas in Illustrator, you're drawing, or Photoshop, you're drawing, and it's more immediate, right? So if that helps you, then the mockup's definitely going to help you a lot. So you're going to make one for each of the pages on your website. You're going to make a mockup for each of the pages. That includes the gallery, etc. That way you can also visually assess how big everything needs to be. Is your gallery going to be 3 images across, or 4, or 2, or 1, whatever? You fix those design problems in the mockup stage right here. So I know that we've already started this part. So a lot of you already have your mockups, some mockups done. So this is, already in the past, so to speak. The next step is to convert all of the work that we've put in here into what I call an HTML template. So just not to be confused with the template that I gave you at the beginning, the template that's on Canvas is just your general HTML template for any HTML document. So you should still start with that file even when you're making a website. But because on a website, there's a lot of elements that are repeating, on every page, like the navigation, maybe you have a footer that's on every page, maybe your margins, etc. There's a lot of things that might be similar on every page. You're going to make an HTML, it's actually HTML template plus a CSS template. Let's see where I put my marker. There it is. I'm going to adjust that. HTML template plus CSS. So the HTML template that you're building for your site is basically just empty boxes for all of the components of your website. So remember, we have these second level elements that we can use in HTML, like section, main, nav, header, footer. You should that's what your HTML template is going to have. It's going to be an empty page of your website. So it should have, a header or an aside, depending on where your navigation is. If your navigation is on the side of the screen, then you should put it in a nav element, but that's going to be in an aside element. If it's at the top, you should use header. You're probably going to have some sort of logo in there, some sort of identity. So you put that in there as well. You design the menu with all of the menu items that you need, and you design a main. You can have a main element in your HTML that's just going to be blank. It's going to have nothing in it. And a footer if you need it. That way, you can then grab that HTML document, you save that, you keep it aside, you call it template for website or whatever, and that's going to be your starting point for every page of your website. Because remember, if we're building a website, we have multiple pages. That means we're building multiple HTML documents for our website. It's true that there are some websites that can be all in one page that you scroll down endlessly. Think of like Instagram, the way it works. I mean, that's way more complex than what we're doing, but just an idea. Like your own Instagram page is just one endless scrolling page, right? But you still, I think, will have satellite pages to that. Like it's likely like your gallery might be all in one page instead of having a gallery, let's say, for photography, design, or posters, print, web, whatever categories you have in your gallery. It's possible that you're going to make just one big gallery with subtitles in it. But the about page and all that stuff might be on a different page. So you'll have multiple HTML documents. And so that's why making that HTML template right here, which is the starting document for all of your website, is useful. Because if you make a blank main element in there, then you're just filling in that main element on each of the pages that you're building afterwards. You don't have to rebuild the navigation. You don't have to rebuild the footer. You don't have to rethink all the margins and all the spacing that you've already put into place. It's there. You've built your grid for your website, essentially. So that's the first step, is to build that template. What we're doing in this class is building in a modular way. We're building all of the parts of the website so that they can be plopped in together in this template afterwards. So that's why I wrote navigation, etc. right below it. So navigation, etc. refers to all of those elements. I'm going to write logo in case etc. is not clear enough. All of those elements that are on every page of your website. Navigation, logo, etc. So don't forget that navigation doesn't have to be just one navigation bar. You know, if you look at some of the websites that have portfolios, some of the portfolio websites, you'll see they'll have a navigation, maybe a main navigation that takes you to projects or whatever, and then a secondary navigation with the social network icons. So Twitter, Facebook, that could be somewhere else. It doesn't have to be right next to all the other icons or menu items. But that's the stage that you build first. That's going to take a little bit of time, but that's not the main part of building a website for us. The main part of building a website is the gallery. About building the galleries will take you a couple of weeks, perhaps. Writing in on my couch over here. Good thing it's not work. It didn't work. Didn't stain my couch. Okay. Gallery is where we're at. So that's the next step after building your template. The reason I start with the gallery is because we're building a portfolio website, and therefore the gallery is where most of the work is going to be. Landing page, that's a very good question, Benji. I'll get to it right after this one. So the gallery page is going to be different for every one of you because not all of you are design students. So I call it a gallery page, but keep in mind, it's like your portfolio, pretty much. The whole thing is your portfolio, but you get the idea. The page where all of your work is going to be. So I know some of you are writing or photography or what's it called? Art direction, advertising, all that stuff. I had students that were in other discipline like video making, etc. So that's the place where all of your work is going to be. And there you can decide what are the categories that I'm going to use. I'm going to use design versus photography. Am I going to focus on the kind of design I'm doing? School work versus professional work. You decide. Oh, got an email. Let me double check. It's not related. Okay. No. So you decide what structure you give your website. Keep in mind, however, that if you have 10 portfolio items and you have 8 categories in your gallery, it's probably not great. You don't want people to have to click through a bunch of stuff just to get to your portfolio. That's another thing you always have to keep in mind when you build something like that. It's just the actual user experience. How many clicks does it take to get to the portfolio? And that takes me to Benji's question about needing a landing page. So there's a bunch of different approaches to that. Some people are just going to land straight on the gallery. Just to be clear, the landing page is the page that is going to appear when you just type in the address, like the nicolascote.com. What's the first page that appears? So back in the day, there used to be a welcome to blah, blah, blah. Please click on this button, like what was called a splash page. The reason that was done before is because we had to load stuff in the background. And so that was a quick, easy way to do it and then have some sort of flashy thing. It's kind of coming back into favor. It's now a good way to showcase an image for your whole website. So on your splash page like that, you could, which would then be your landing page in this case, you can just have one of your design work, like your favorite, and some sort of call to action. A call to action is some sort of button that says, click me, or like an order, an instruction, so that people know what the next step, they know clearly what the next step is going to be in interacting with your website. Keep in mind that's an extra click to get to the actual content of your website though, so it might not be appropriate. So some people will land on the gallery, some people will land on the about page. Up to you. Again, it really depends on what feel you want your website to have. The about page can be useful if you want to introduce yourself first before people get to the work. Some people in previous semesters also made a kind of a best of page. That was just like a little paragraph, welcome to my portfolio website, with a tiny little detail that's different than the about page or whatever, and then a few selected pieces that would then link to pages in the portfolio. Up to you. Ideally, by next week, I would like you to have this completed. Your template page should be done with the navigation and all that stuff. And that's for desktop and mobile. From now on, we're going to work on both at the same time. Normally now people are very fond of designing mobile first. That means that you're thinking of your design from the standpoint of someone using it on a phone. For a portfolio website, we're in a bit of a different situation because it's kind of like a big screen kind of thing. If you're showing your portfolio to someone, well, I think I said this in class, if you're showing your portfolio to an employer, you're in an interview and the employer whips out their phone and they're scrolling through your portfolio and you're like, oh yeah, that looks great. I don't know if that's a place you want to work at, to be honest. You'll probably take the job like I did back in the day, but if they don't give you your portfolio the attention it deserves, which is to look at your pieces on a big screen, they might not care as much as they should, in my opinion. But that's my opinion. So this mobile and desktop first, well, in our case, we're going to do it at the same time. So instead of mobile first or desktop first, which used to be the old way, we're going to do them both at the same time. Your design should work best on desktop in our case, but it doesn't mean that we should neglect the mobile. Because it's definitely super useful. That's happened to me if I had, I'm just in a random social situation. Hey, remember those things when we used to hang out with people in a common space? And you meet someone and they're looking for someone to do design or whatever you're offering. It's useful to be like, well, check out my stuff. Right away, you have it. It's like you always have your portfolio in your pocket. That's super, super useful. So that's why mobile and desktop we're doing at the same time at this step. Then the next step will be the gallery. So week 10 to week 11. If we spend 2 weeks on this, that's week 11 and week 12. And another week for this one, week 13, and then finishing touches week 14, so that by week 15 it's done, you're ready to turn it in. That way that still gives us a little bit of room to maneuver. Like if it takes you a little bit longer to do this, then you can fudge it up and push this a little bit further. But likely this is the step that's going to take the most time. Students always underestimate this step. This is the one that's going to take a while because there's a lot of things to figure out. Next week, I'll show you some tricks to use Flex to make your gallery. I think I might have shown you that link already in class. It's all a blur now that we've been quarantined. I feel like I've been in my house for like 3 months, but so I have a hard time remembering exactly where we're at in the class. But yes, so that's the plan. I'll write the numbers on there. Let's use a different color. I have all these colors here. Come on, not blue. It's boring. Where's the magenta? Magenta? Magenta. Magenta is so exciting as a color that it disappeared. There we go. So we got previous weeks over here. So done. Then today, week 10, week 11, 12. Oh, wrote it wrong. It's actually week 11, 12 for the gallery. Week 13 for the rest. Week 14 and week 15. Done. Yes, let me just check on the camera here. So we are here at week 10. Which gives us, we're going to do this in a week. Couple of weeks. Another week. Finishing touches, another week over here. So that gives you a week at the end to just kind of figure out the details. You know at this point how long this takes, and you know the great feeling of running into something that doesn't work when you're coding something and then having to spend 2 hours figuring it out. That's why this is here, because I know it's going to take longer as you work. It's completely normal to get frustrated and get stuck on something when you're doing this. It just happens. So HTML template plus CSS is the first step. You make your menu and you make your mobile desktop versions. So to help you with that stuff, what I did is where is it? Yes, I'll publish it right now. So if you refresh the page for week 10 in Canvas, you'll see a new link to something called CSS only hamburger menu. What I did is I took something made by this person, Eric Terwan, if I'm saying his name right, where this person made a quick little burger menu that already works. Don't have to reinvent the wheel. The stuff is so common on the internet that there's a countless number of versions of pre-made hamburger menus that you can totally use in this project. To be clear, this happens every semester that one of the students is just now going to start using templates for the whole website. Do not do that. The whole point of this class is for me to evaluate how you write code and how you do this stuff. So if you're using someone else's template, that kind of defeats the purpose. Oh, just got a beep, but no one is here. Okay. Okay. Good. So it's called Pure CSS Fold-Out Menu by Eric Tarwan. It's part of my CodePen. I'm going to put a link to my general CodePen also, since all of these things that I talked about today are in there as well. If you remember the examples I showed before, that's that. Okay. Navigation logo. Gallery. Let me just see if I can put in the assignment in Canvas for the portfolio website, because I'm pretty sure I wrote something for you guys already. Okay, that's just the logistics of making a portfolio website. Like I said, the grading is still off. The points are off in Canvas, off by, it's the previous version of the points. So I'll change that after class tonight or tomorrow. Yes. I'm going to edit the amount of time that you're supposed to spend on this because we're in a different situation now. Wish I could do strike through. Canvas is not fun to edit stuff on. Customize the style. Can't do it. Text decoration. What? So I'm just updating the portfolio. Jeez. Doing it right. Sorry, getting some, whoops, technical difficulties. Essentially, it's no big deal. You know already what I'm changing. It's just this thing at the bottom of the portfolio website assignment that just talks about the amount of work that you've put in. Oh, line 2 is what I want. That's why. There we go. Okay. There we go. Oh, something that I should really point out is that the deadlines have been changed for you guys, the bureaucratic deadlines. Just so you know, you have until April 17 to withdraw from classes. So if you feel like this is not going well or that you're not going to be able to finish properly, you can still withdraw, and it means that this class won't affect your GPA. Counts for something if you're really completely overwhelmed. It could be for this class, for another class as well, but feel free to do that if you feel like you can't cope. So April 17 is 8 days from now, so it's next Friday, not tomorrow, but the Friday after. You can also decide to change your grade from a normal letter grade to a pass-fail grade. Did you guys get a message about this? The pass-fail versus the letter grade? Let me know if you have or if you have not. Essentially what it is that instead of getting an A, B, C, D, F grade, okay, good. Everyone knows about it. So that's a possibility also. There's pros and cons, right? You saw the pros and cons. Pass fail is a little bit more lenient because you don't need a C or more if this is a mandatory class for you to pass the class. You can get a D and still pass, but you'll get a pass or a fail. You're not going to get an A, B, C, D grade, which means that you won't have any GPA effects. It'll just not count for your GPA. So if you feel like you're probably going to barely pass, then switch to pass fail, not a problem. I'm still going to evaluate the same way though. Just keep in mind, this evaluation that we set up today is for everybody, regardless of whether or not you take the pass fail or not. So you have until Friday, May 1st to change if you decide to do that. Like I said, I'm going to put in all the grades that I need to put in from before. That'll give you a better idea of how well you're doing in the class as well. And since the voting project is due next week, that's also going to be a grade that's going to be in before May 1st. But a fail grade is still a fail grade, and it'll still affect your GPA. Just so you know. Yes. Once you decide to go with pass fail, can't go back to letter grade. In other words, it's not like a game show. You can't pick pass and then get a pass and then decide to go back to letter. That's just how it is, and vice versa. You can't get a D and then say, "Can I go pass fail?" Until May 1st, you have a chance. So think about it for all of your classes. I think that's a really good idea. I think that can help with all the unknown factors that affect the way that the semester is going. So I think in certain cases it's really useful. So just, look into it and make a decision. I'm going to close some of these tabs because I'm just overwhelmed with stuff here now. Okay. Close. Yes. Good. Okay. I'm pretty sure it's case by case, Michelle. Michelle's asking, in case you're not on the chat, if you can do pass fail for just one class, or do you have to do it across the board for your whole semester? As far as I know, as far as I understand the information that's there, it's class by class. So you could decide to take, drawing one as a pass fail, but web design as a normal number. It seems like what it is. Yes. And it's a little different than a normal pass fail because it still fulfills the program requirements for your minor and your major. So in the case of our class, if it's a class that's required for you, it'll still count if you get a pass as you having done the class. I'm just gonna grab my mug of water that's just right over there. Just, so thirsty. Give me a second. Enjoy looking at my couch while I go get this glass. It's a little chilly today. A little chilly. I was so happy about this nice weather when biked in the park, away from people, of course. And it's a little chilly. That's what happens when a tornado comes to town, or rather, that's what causes a tornado, is when you have heat and cold running into each other. They don't like it. Okay, I'm going to explicitly ask, did everyone try the programming exercise? And question number 2, do you have any questions about the programming exercise? You should try, just get started, do the first of 110 steps. Sign in, do all that stuff, make it public. In fact, I'm going to adjust the text that I wrote so that everyone knows that they have to go into the settings. What's that button? Update my account settings. Should be able to and give Choose a username. Oh, I just realized that my instructions are outdated. There is no more curriculum. It's called Learn now. Okay, so that's good. Ah, crap. Here we go. Okay. That makes more sense. Gonna look at the chat now to see if anyone. Okay, I'm still on there. No, yes. Okay, so good. So that's the programming exercise. Whoops, sorry, I just kicked the camera, kicked the tripod. Whoops. The other question is related to this. I'm going to try to make a quick little video about, these two steps, just because there's a few people missing in the live stream and I don't want them to feel like they're left out or they don't have the tools to finish the work. But that's what you should be working on. Well, I mean, you should be finishing the voting project if you haven't already. If it's not ready, just make sure. Make sure to test it before you send the link, just to make sure that it works exactly how you want. Make sure to hold Shift and press refresh to get the very latest version of your CSS. Oops, there goes my cushion. And then get started on your portfolio. Yes, that makes sense. Portfolio and the programming exercise. Hopefully by next week, you'll have a template. And so we're going to do things a little differently now. Normally you wouldn't have to upload all this stuff as you're working, but since I can't see your work every week, let's say spend like 10 minutes at the beginning of class or before class to just upload the latest version of what you've done so far. There are some students I feel, excuse me, like they don't want to upload their work if they feel like they're falling behind, but you definitely should, even if you feel like you didn't do as much work as you were supposed to or whatever. That way I can still help you continue and move forward. And potentially gives us an opening to try some sort of class critique that we could do in something like Teams or a thing where we can see everyone's video. If we end up doing something like that, I'll have to just do a quick check with everyone to make sure that everyone has access to a camera or whatever, or a microphone. But chances are, if you have a phone, you can do it off of your phone. Do you have any questions about building your website? I'm going to wait a few minutes. I'm going to take a photo of this while we're at it so I know what I shared with you without having to scroll through this whole video. Not like to work. I'm going to take this photo like this. See if that's going to work. Okay. Yes. Perfect. Why is my phone not making any sounds? Oh. Looks like my phone was sending sound to the kitchen downstairs. Oops. Yes. So the HTML template CSS is the thing that I was talking about where you're going to build just the shell of your website. You know, if you look at a website, any website, you're going to have some sort of navigation and then a main part of the screen that's used for the content, right? You know, if you're on Canvas right now, like I am, on the left-hand side, you have this navigation with all the little icons. And then there's a second tier navigation right next to it with a bunch of texts, you know, the one with chats, Zoom, modules, and all that stuff. And then we have the actual page, course chat. So all of those things are kind of modules that are always around, you know, like that navigation on the left is always around. 15 years saving as we go. I'm logged in with my username. Sorry, a little interruption, but that's okay. Sid is talking about if you are saving, you know what? You should try it now, because if you try it when you're at 90%, it's going to hurt even more. But in theory, if you're logged in with your username that you can see at the top or wherever, and it's saving all your progress as you go, the moment you click next on a thing, it just saves where you are. Then if you close the browser and come back, it should keep your progress. Yes, that's the whole point. But it's a good idea. Sid brings up a good point. It's a good idea to try right away in case you run into any issues. You're not going to lose a whole lot of work. You're just going to use, you know, a few minutes of work. Well, 15% is a fair bit, but you know. So to get back to Ryan's question, the HTML template CSS is you building all of those pieces that are on every page of your website. So those pieces usually include a logo, a navigation, sometimes also includes a secondary navigation with the social network icons like Facebook, Instagram, whatever you want to link to. It can also include stuff like copyright, you know, in a footer or whatever, just the things that are always present on every single page of your website. So this is where your wireframes and your mockups can help you figure out exactly what those pieces are. Just look at all your mockups for every page and see exactly what is there all the time. Because there might be some more things besides the things I just mentioned. And then what you do is you make I'd call it a top-down HTML document where you start with the biggest elements and drill down to the smallest. So if you remember how we've been building stuff so far for the resume, we started with making like paragraphs and bullet lists and etc., and then wrapping all that stuff into section, main, footer, header, etc. This time we're going the other way. The reason I'm doing that is just to show you different ways of constructing pages. But in this case, you're going to start with the HTML template that's on Canvas, and you're going to put into it header with nothing in it, and then main with nothing in it, and footer with nothing in it, and whatever other parts you want. And then you're going to build the header or the aside if your navigation is on the side. Okay, well, in there, what do you have? You have a logo and your navigation. Okay, so make a div for the logo or whatever you use, and then make a nav element. Still completely empty. Nothing's going to display on your page. Then you build a navigation. Inside the navigation, you make the bullet list or whatever you want to use to make the navigation. Done. So now your navigation is there. You plop in the image for your logo. Now you can start styling. The main is still empty. You can put in the footer as well if you want, but main is remaining empty. You style just that navigation and all those parts that are staying on every page of your website. But this is also a place where you can put the margins for main. If you know you're always going to have, let's say, a 10% margin on either side of the main part of your website, put it in right now in your CSS. And so once you're done styling your navigation and your header and your footer and all those parts that are on all of the websites, you end up with an HTML document and a CSS document that are the starting point for all of the other pages that you're going to build on your website. So call both of those blah, blah, blah template or whatever you want to call it, but like keep them aside. And every time you make a new page for your website, you make a copy of that file on your computer, and then you rename it about gallery, main or index or whatever. And that way, all you have to do there, the styling is already done for the navigation, for the logo, for all those parts that are staying. The background color of the main is correct. The fonts have been chosen, etc. You don't have to retype that every time. You already have it in your CSS template. All you have to do is now fill the HTML for the main element in your HTML document and do some CSS on that as well. So this is where those more advanced selectors can be useful. Remember, if you write two elements with a space in between as a selector in CSS, you're saying, let's say you write main P, you're saying select every paragraph that is inside the main element. So that can enable you to write really specific CSS that just applies to the header or the footer or the aside, and then other CSS that just applies to the main element. That way, when you keep designing your website, you're not going to mess up your navigation. You're not going to mess up your footer and all those parts that stay there. You're only going to affect the part that is the specific page that you're working on. So I hope that answers your question, Ryan, or anyone else that had a similar question. Feel free to ask me more questions. I'm just going to walk away for 5 minutes or so, and I'll be right back. Here's what I'm going to do in case anyone jumps in and out. I'm going to write a little BRB on this board. And I need a brush for this thing. Okay. There we go. So I'm going to put that, let's see if I can put it somewhere that's visible. Perfect. I'll be right back. Grab my phone. I'm back. The advantage of working from home is the ability to have some guest star. Get up here, Bee. Good pup. Have a seat. This is Beasley. Whoa, I like my fingers. Gentle. Good pup. She's too big, but she's the best. There she is. So, Beasley's 10 years old, and she's the sweetest pup. I don't know what kind of dog she is. She's a mix of a shepherd and lab, probably. We got her at the Paws shelter on Clybourne on the north side. She's the best. But she's shedding like crazy right now. I'm going to back this up a little bit. There you go. Yeah, she's like, I'm not supposed to be up here. Yes, Beasley. It's all good. It's all for learning. It's for the pursuit of knowledge, Beasley. There you go. Official mascot of all my teaching. So Beasley helps because, well, I get to take her on walks. I usually try to go at night, like at 1 in the morning, so there's no one around, but it keeps me healthy to go outside. I also, like I was pointing out in the announcement, really helps to kind of leave the house and do some exercise to stay healthy mentally as well. So let me check if there's anything going on over here. Yes, Sydney, you are good to go. Sorry, I'm answering your chat 7 minutes late. So if you left already, too late. I think we're going to wrap this up, actually, unless someone has any specific questions they want to ask right now. I think we're going to call it a day for today. She's very sweet. She definitely looks like she could bite her face off, but she would never. She's never bitten anyone in her life. She's the best. But you know what? She sucks at web design. She really sucks. It's no good. So, can't be good at everything. Oh, so if you're still working like Sydney, stay safe. Just try to stay clean and far away from people as much as you can. And, it's a tricky situation for sure, but we just have to get through it. That's the option. The option is we got to get through it. So, try to stay healthy and take care of yourself as well, not just the people around you. We're all going to get through this together. Okay, so for next week, remember programming and voting project and portfolio. So there's a bit of an overlap this week for 3 different projects. But also keep an eye on Canvas for next week, because I'm probably not going to be using YouTube for the stream. I'm probably going to use something else that has a chat that's integrated. I think it'll just be easier for me to handle, and also it'll just be more straightforward. So now's your chance. If you have any questions to ask, I'm going to stay on until the next 5 minutes or so. And after that, I'm going to log off all of this stuff. I'll stay on the chat for a little bit, but I'll turn off the camera so I can relax, stop talking to myself. Thank you, Benji, for showing up and doing this. Bye, Jasmine. Thank you. There's one thing I've noticed as I get older. You get a little bit more life in you. If there's one thing I've noticed, that everything changes all the time. And I think that the people who get crabby and cranky when they get older are the people who don't think that, and they think that everything that happens is wrong. And if you have that approach of things changing all the time, it just makes you more able to deal with situations like this, because we never know what's in the future. So you gotta just roll with it as much as you can. That's what Beasley thinks. Still there. Still there. She's never fought that one. Actually, she's still there because the door's closed to my office. Whoops. Okay. Have a great weekend. Do the best you can with all this, and everything will be fine. Thank you, Ryan. Take care. Thanks to everyone for coming. If you are, also if you're unable to get in touch with your voting project teammate, just let me know, because we need to figure this out. Mary, stay safe out there, especially you. You're doing great work with your family. Just make sure that you take care of yourselves as well, because you can't do that work if you're all sick. It's really important. Beasley, she's back. Back closer. Beasley, you're a sweet pup. Yeah. So like I said, I'm going to stay on the chat until 10 to 5, but I'm going to turn off the stream. It should go like this because it's plugged to the computer that's over there. So, mwah. Oh yeah, don't even have to get up. My mouse is right here.